The winter wind cut through Olivia Harper's threadbare shawl like 1,000 tiny knives as she stood in the snow outside the Silver Creek Ranch in Winnemucca, Nevada, waiting to discover what cruel fate awaited her next in this God-forsaken year of 1883. Her stomach twisted with hunger and dread as the ranch foreman had told her just moments ago that she would be working as a servant for room and board, nothing more, and her pride burned even as her fingers went numb from the cold. She had arrived in Nevada 3 weeks earlier with nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart heavy with loss. Her father had died from fever back in Kansas, leaving debts that swallowed everything they owned. With no family left and nowhere to turn, Olivia had used her last dollars to board a westbound train, hoping to find work in the mining towns that dotted the Nevada landscape. But winter had come early and harsh, and jobs for respectable women were scarce. When she heard that Silver Creek Ranch needed help in the kitchens and with laundry, she swallowed what remained of her pride and walked the 5 miles from town in the freezing cold. The main house loomed before her now, a sprawling structure of timber and stone that spoke of wealth she could barely imagine. Smoke curled from 3 separate chimneys, and warm light glowed in the windows. Behind the house stretched the bunkhouses, barns, and corrals that housed the ranch's operations. Even in winter, Silver Creek was a bustling enterprise, one of the largest cattle operations in northern Nevada. Olivia clutched her small carpet bag tighter and walked toward the servants' entrance at the back of the house. Her boots, worn thin at the soles, crunched through the snow. She was 20 years old, though she felt decades older after the past year of hardship. Her auburn hair, once her mother's pride, hung in a simple braid down her back, and her green eyes had lost some of their spark. The kitchen door swung open before she could knock, and a stern-faced woman with iron-gray hair surveyed her with obvious disapproval. "You must be the Harper girl." "I am Mrs. Brennan, the head housekeeper. You are late." "I apologize, madam. The snow made the walk difficult. Excuses will not be tolerated here. Come inside before you freeze to death on my doorstep." The warmth of the kitchen enveloped Olivia like a benediction, and she had to resist the urge to weep with relief. The room was enormous, with a massive cast iron stove, rows of copper pots hanging from hooks, and a long wooden table scarred by years of use. 2 other women worked at the far end, kneading bread and peeling vegetables. They glanced at Olivia with curiosity but said nothing. Mrs. Brennan wasted no time. "You will sleep in the attic room with Sarah, the other housemaid. You will rise at 4 in the morning to help prepare breakfast for the ranch hands. After breakfast is served and cleaned, you will assist with laundry, mending, cleaning, and whatever else I assign you. Your meals will be taken after the family and ranch hands have eaten. You will have Sunday afternoons off for church if you wish, though you will still prepare supper. Is this understood?" "Yes, madam. The master of this house is Mr. Theodore Winter. You will address him as sir and speak only when spoken to. He is a hard man but fair, and he expects his household to run smoothly. His son was killed in an accident 2 years ago, and grief has made him even more demanding. Do not disappoint him." Olivia's heart sank at the mention of Winter. She had heard his name in town, spoken with a mixture of respect and fear. He had built Silver Creek from nothing over 30 years, and his word was law in this part of Nevada. That such a man had been reduced to taking on penniless servants spoke to how desperate the winter labor shortage had become. Mrs. Brennan showed her to the attic room, a cramped space under the eaves with 2 narrow beds and a small washstand. "Sarah will show you the routines. Do not give me reason to regret taking you on." Olivia unpacked her meager belongings and tried not to think about how far she had fallen. 6 months ago, she had been a shopkeeper's daughter with prospects and dreams. Now she was little better than an indentured servant, working for scraps and shelter. That first week passed in a blur of backbreaking work. Olivia rose before dawn to help prepare enormous breakfasts for the dozen ranch hands who worked Silver Creek through the winter. She scrubbed pots until her hands were raw, hauled water from the pump until her shoulders ached, and spent hours bent over the washboard in the freezing laundry shed. Mrs. Brennan watched her with hawk eyes, quick to criticize and slow to praise. Sarah, her roommate, was a timid girl of 19 who had worked at Silver Creek for a year. "You get used to it," she whispered one night as they lay in their narrow beds. "Mrs. Brennan is strict, but she is not cruel like some, and Mr. Winter barely notices we exist, which is a blessing." Olivia had caught only glimpses of Theodore Winter in those first days. He was a tall man in his late 50s, with iron gray hair and a face carved from granite. He moved through his domain with the confidence of someone who had built everything he owned with his own hands, and his rare words carried the weight of absolute authority. When he looked at Olivia, his gaze passed over her as if she were part of the furniture, and she was grateful for the invisibility. But there was someone else who noticed her. Isaac Morgan had been working at Silver Creek Ranch for 3 years, and at 25, he was the youngest of the senior ranch hands. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that perpetually fell across his forehead and eyes the color of a summer sky, he had the easy grace of someone who had spent his entire life on horseback. Unlike many cowboys, Isaac could read and write, the product of a mother who had been a schoolteacher before fever took her when he was 12. He had drifted west after his father died, finding work on ranches from Texas to Montana before landing at Silver Creek. Isaac first saw Olivia on her 3rd day at the ranch. He had come into the kitchen through the back door, stamping snow from his boots, to retrieve the lunch basket for the men working on fence repairs in the far pasture. She was at the wash basin, her sleeves rolled up to reveal slender forearms red from the cold water, her auburn hair escaping its braid in damp tendrils. She looked exhausted and defeated, and something in her bearing, the way she held herself with dignity despite her circumstances, struck him like a physical blow. "Morning," he said, his voice gentler than he intended. Olivia looked up, startled. Men did not usually speak to the servants except to bark orders. She met his eyes for just a moment, and Isaac saw intelligence and pain there before she quickly lowered her gaze. "Good morning, sir. No need for sir. Name is Isaac, Isaac Morgan. Mrs. Brennan swept into the room before Olivia could respond, scolding her back to work and shoving the lunch basket into Isaac's hands. But as he walked back out into the cold, Isaac found himself thinking about the new servant girl and the shadows in her green eyes. He began finding excuses to come to the kitchen. He volunteered to fetch supplies, deliver messages, and carry in firewood. He learned that her name was Olivia, that she was from Kansas, and that she worked harder than anyone he had ever seen. He watched as Mrs. Brennan piled task after task on her slim shoulders, and anger began to simmer in his chest. 2 weeks after Olivia's arrival, Isaac came into the kitchen to find her struggling to lift a massive pot of boiling water from the stove. The pot was clearly too heavy for her, and her arms shook with the effort. Before Mrs. Brennan could snap at her for being slow, Isaac stepped forward. "Let me help with that." "I can manage," Olivia said quietly, but her voice trembled. "I know you can, but you do not have to." Isaac wrapped a cloth around the handle and lifted the pot easily, carrying it to the wash basin. Up close, He could see the dark circles under her eyes and the way her dress hung loose on her frame. She was not eating enough, working too hard, and it filled him with protective fury he did not fully understand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Miss Harper, return to your duties," Mrs. Brennan said sharply. "And Mr. Morgan, the ranch hands have work to do that does not involve my kitchen." Isaac met the older woman's gaze steadily. "Just helping out, Mrs. Brennan." That evening, as the ranch hands gathered in the bunkhouse after supper, Isaac found himself unable to concentrate on the usual card games and stories. Jack Riley, a weathered cowboy in his 40s, noticed his distraction. "You have been mooning about like a lovesick calf, Morgan. What is eating you? You see how they treat that new girl, the one from Kansas." Jack shrugged. "Servants work hard, that is how it is. She is barely eating. Working herself to the bone. It is not right. Not our business. Winter runs his household how he sees fit." But Isaac could not shake his unease. Over the following days he watched more carefully. He saw how Olivia was given the heaviest, dirtiest tasks. How she ate standing up in the kitchen, picking at scraps after everyone else had been fed. How her hands were always red and chapped, her shoulders perpetually hunched with exhaustion. The breaking point came on a bitter morning 3 weeks after Olivia's arrival. Isaac had come to the well behind the main house to water his horse and saw Olivia hauling buckets of icy water across the yard to the laundry shed. She slipped on a patch of ice, falling hard, the bucket flying from her hands. Water soaked her dress and the ground around her. Isaac was off his horse in an instant, pulling her to her feet. "Are you hurt?" "I am fine," she gasped, but tears of frustration and exhaustion streamed down her cheeks. "The laundry needs to be done. Mrs. Brennan will be angry. To hell with the laundry." The words came out harsher than he intended, and he softened his tone. "You are freezing. Come on." He guided her into the nearest building, which happened to be the tack room in the barn. Inside, out of the wind, he found a horse blanket and draped it around her shoulders. Olivia sat on a hay bale, shivering violently, looking small and lost. "This is not right," Isaac said, crouching before her so they were eye to eye. "The way they work you, the way they treat you, you deserve better than this." Those 4 words, spoken with such conviction, broke something open inside Olivia. She had been holding everything together through sheer will, refusing to acknowledge how much she hated her circumstances, how trapped she felt. Now, faced with genuine kindness from this cowboy with kind eyes, her defenses crumbled. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. "No family, no money. I should be grateful for room and board." "Grateful? Olivia, you are being worked like a mule for scraps. That is not gratitude they want. That is exploitation. What choice do I have?" Isaac took a deep breath, knowing he was about to step over a line he could not uncross. "You could let me help you. I have some money saved. Not much, but enough to get you a room in town while you look for proper work. Something better than this." "I cannot take your money. I barely know you." "Then get to know me." The intensity in his voice surprised them both. "Let me take you into town this Sunday, just to talk. No obligations, but I cannot stand by and watch you destroy yourself for Theodore Winter's benefit." Olivia searched his face, looking for ulterior motives and finding only sincerity. This cowboy, this stranger, was offering her a lifeline without asking for anything in return. It terrified her almost as much as it gave her hope. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Isaac smiled, and it transformed his face. "Because from the moment I saw you, I knew you were someone worth caring about. Because you work harder than any 2 men combined and never complain. Because you deserve kindness, and I would like to be someone who gives it to you." No one had spoken to Olivia with such respect and admiration in longer than she could remember. She found herself nodding before she fully realized what she was agreeing to. Sunday afternoon, after I have finished with supper preparations. I will bring the wagon around at 2 o'clock. We will tell Mrs. Brennan I am taking you to church. That would be a lie. Then I will take you to church first and we will talk afterward. Better. Olivia felt the first genuine smile in months tug at her lips. Better. They heard Mrs. Brennan's voice calling for Olivia, sharp and impatient. Isaac helped her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. Go on. But Sunday, Olivia, I will be waiting. The days until Sunday crawled by with agonizing slowness. Olivia worked her exhausting routine, but now she had something to look forward to, a small bright spot in the darkness. She caught glimpses of Isaac around the ranch, and each time their eyes met, he gave her a small, encouraging nod that made her heart lift. Sarah noticed the change in her. You seem different, happier. Do I? Olivia tried to sound casual as they dressed for bed on Saturday night. Is it because of Isaac Morgan? I have seen him watching you. Olivia felt heat rise in her cheeks. He is just being kind. Isaac is a good man, one of the best here, but be careful. Mr. Winter does not like his employees fraternizing. If he finds out Isaac is paying special attention to you, it could mean trouble for both of you. The warning dampened some of Olivia's excitement, but not enough to make her cancel their plans. She needed this. Needed to remember what it felt like to be seen as a person rather than a pair of hands to work. Sunday afternoon arrived cold but clear. Olivia had indeed attended church that morning, sitting in the back pew reserved for servants and ranch hands. Isaac had been there too, dressed in his cleanest shirt, and when the service ended he was waiting by the wagon. Mrs. Brennan eyed them suspiciously. Where are you taking Miss Harper? Just for a drive, madam. Young lady has been working hard. Thought she could use some fresh air. See that you have her back by 4 to help with supper. They rode in silence for the first few minutes, heading down the road toward Winnemucca. The landscape was stark and beautiful, snow-covered hills rolling toward distant mountains. Olivia breathed deeply, feeling tension drain from her shoulders as distance grew between her and Silver Creek. Thank you for this, she said finally. I did not realize how much I needed to get away. You are working yourself to death, Isaac said bluntly. I've been talking to some folks in town. The hotel needs a clerk and the general store could use help. Both pay actual wages. I have no references. No one will hire me. I will vouch for you. So will Jack Riley and a few of the other hands. We are known in town. Our word counts for something. Olivia turned to look at him, this cowboy who was upending his life for a woman he barely knew. Why are you doing this, Isaac? Truly, he was quiet for a long moment, guiding the horses with practiced ease. When he spoke, his voice was low and honest. Because I have spent the last 3 years drifting from ranch to ranch, never putting down roots, never letting myself care about anything or anyone. And then I saw you in that kitchen, working yourself to the bone with your head held high, and something shifted inside me. I cannot explain it better than that. I look at you and I think this is someone worth staying for, worth fighting for. Olivia's breath caught. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. You barely know me. Then let me get to know you. Tell me about Kansas, about your family, about who you were before Winter made you a servant on his ranch. So Olivia talked. She told him about her father's general store, about helping him with the books and waiting on customers. She described her mother, dead 5 years now from consumption, who had taught her to read and play piano. She spoke of her dreams of maybe opening her own shop someday, of having a real home again. Isaac listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed he genuinely cared about her answers. He told her about his own past, growing up on a small farm in Missouri, learning to ride before he could properly walk, losing his parents and setting out west to make his own way. I never found a place that felt like home, he admitted. Until recently. Silver Creek is a good ranch. Winter is hard but mostly fair to his men. I was thinking about settling here permanently, maybe saving up to buy some land of my own eventually. That sounds like a good life. It could be, if I had the right person to share it with. The implication hung in the air between them. Olivia's heart raced. This was happening too fast, surely. She had known this man for less than a month. But there was something about Isaac, a steadiness and kindness that called to something deep in her soul. They reached the outskirts of Winnemucca and Isaac guided the wagon toward a small restaurant. "Have you eaten today?" "I had some bread and coffee after church." "Not enough. Come on, let me buy you a proper meal." Inside the warm restaurant, they sat across from each other at a small table, and Olivia felt like a real person again. The waitress treated her with respect, not as a servant to be ordered around. Isaac insisted she order whatever she wanted, and when the food came, roast chicken with potatoes and vegetables and fresh bread, Olivia nearly wept at the abundance. "Eat slowly," Isaac said gently, watching her devour the meal. "When was the last time you had a full plate?" "I cannot remember." His jaw tightened. "This is going to change, Olivia, I promise you. You are not going back to being worked to death. I have no choice." "There are always choices. I will help you find them." They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily as if they had known each other for years. Isaac made her laugh with stories about ranch mishaps and stubborn cattle. Olivia found herself relaxing in a way she had not since before her father died. Finally, reluctantly, they had to return to Silver Creek. As the ranch came into view, Olivia felt the weight settling back on her shoulders. "This was wonderful," she said softly. "Thank you, Isaac, for everything. This is not the end, this is just the beginning." He pulled the wagon to a stop before they reached the main yard. "I meant what I said. You deserve better, and I am going to help you get it. Will you trust me?" Olivia looked into his blue eyes and saw determination and something deeper, something that made her pulse quicken. "I will trust you," he smiled, and for a moment she thought he might take her hand, but they were too close to the house. Instead, he just nodded. "Good. I will figure something out. Just hold on a little longer." That night, as Olivia lay in her narrow bed, she felt hope for the first time in months. Maybe her life did not have to be endless servitude. Maybe there was a chance for something better. But Theodore Winter had noticed the attention Isaac was paying to his newest servant, and he did not approve. The next morning, Winter summoned Isaac to his office in the main house. The room was all dark wood and leather, with a massive desk covered in ledgers and maps. Winter sat behind the desk like a judge, his gray eyes cold. "Mr. Morgan, I understand you took Miss Harper into town yesterday." "Yes, sir, just for a few hours." "I do not pay you to entertain my servants. Your job is to manage the cattle and maintain this ranch." "It was my day off, sir." "My own time." "Nothing that happens on Silver Creek is entirely your own time, Morgan. You are one of my best men, which is why I am addressing this directly rather than simply dismissing you. But I will not tolerate distractions. Miss Harper is here to work, not to be courted by cowboys." Isaac felt anger rising but forced his voice to stay level. "With respect, sir, Miss Harper is being overworked. She is barely eating, exhausted all the time. That is no way to treat anyone." Winter's expression hardened. "How I run my household is not your concern. Miss Harper came here seeking work, and work is what she has. If she cannot handle it, she is free to leave. And go where? You know as well as I do that she has nothing. Then she should be grateful for what I provide. This conversation is over, Morgan. Stay away from the girl, or I will have no choice but to let you go. Am I understood?" Isaac wanted to argue, to tell Winter exactly what he thought of a man who would exploit someone in such desperate circumstances. But getting himself fired would not help Olivia. He needed to be smarter than that. "Understood, sir." But as Isaac left the office, his mind was already working on a plan. Over the next week, he spoke quietly with the other ranch hands he trusted. Jack Riley, despite his initial dismissiveness, admitted that he had noticed Olivia's treatment and did not like it. Tom Chen, the ranch's horse trainer, agreed that something needed to be done. Even old Pete Williams, who had worked at Silver Creek for 20 years, shook his head at how Winter was handling things. "Used to be different," Pete said. "Before his son died, Winter was stern but fair. Now he is just bitter, taking it out on anyone weaker than him." Isaac also made a trip into Winnemucca on his own, talking to business owners about employment opportunities. The hotel manager, a woman named Mrs. Fitzgerald, remembered Olivia from church. "She seems like a hard-working girl. If she can read and write and do figures, I could use someone at the front desk. Room and board included, plus $2 a week." It was not a fortune, but it was better than servitude. Isaac thanked her and continued making arrangements. Meanwhile, Olivia's situation was deteriorating. Mrs. Brennan, perhaps sensing Winter's disapproval of her relationship with Isaac, had become even more demanding. Tasks that would normally be shared were now piled entirely on Olivia. She was given the coldest, most unpleasant work, sent out in freezing weather to hang laundry, made to scrub floors on her hands and knees until they bled. Sarah tried to help when she could, but Mrs. Brennan watched them like a hawk. One afternoon, Sarah slipped Olivia an extra biscuit from the kitchen, and Mrs. Brennan caught her. "That food is not yours to give away," she snapped at Sarah. Then to Olivia, "If you need extra food, you will work extra hours to earn it." Olivia was too tired to even respond. She simply nodded and returned to the massive pile of mending that waited. Isaac saw her briefly that evening as he came in from the range. She was carrying firewood to the house, stumbling with exhaustion. He caught her elbow to steady her. "Olivia, you should not be talking to me. Mr. Winter will fire you." "I do not care about Winter. Are you all right?" "I am fine." "You are not fine. You are ready to collapse." He lowered his voice. "I have been making arrangements. The hotel in town will hire you. Better pay, better treatment. I can take you there this week." Olivia shook her head, fear in her eyes. "If I leave, Mr. Winter will make sure I never work in this county again. He has that kind of power. Not if enough people speak up for you, not if you have help. Isaac, please. I appreciate everything you are trying to do, but you will only make things worse for yourself. Just let it be." She pulled away and hurried into the house before he could argue. Isaac stood in the snow, frustrated and furious. He could not just stand by and watch her destroy herself, but she was too frightened to accept his help. That night, a blizzard rolled in across northern Nevada, one of the worst storms in years. The temperature plummeted, and snow fell so thick you could barely see 10 feet ahead. The ranch hands battened down the hatches, moving the cattle to sheltered areas and securing buildings against the wind. In the main house, the fires roared, but drafts still snuck through every crack. Mrs. Brennan sent Olivia out repeatedly to fetch more firewood, to check on the laundry shed, to ensure the chickens were secure. Each time Olivia went out, she came back colder and more exhausted. On her fourth trip, carrying an armload of wood through the blinding snow, Olivia simply could not go any further. Her legs gave out and she fell to her knees in a drift. The wood scattered around her. She tried to get up, but her limbs would not obey. The cold was seeping into her bones and dark spots danced across her vision. "This is how I die," she thought distantly. "Frozen in the snow, working for a man who does not even know my name. Then strong arms were lifting her, and Isaac's voice was in her ear. "I have got you. Hold on." He had been checking the barn when he saw her fall through the swirling snow. Now he carried her not to the main house, but to the bunkhouse, kicking the door open and bringing her inside. The other ranch hands looked up in surprise as Isaac laid Olivia on his own bunk, piling blankets over her shivering form. "What in blazes?" Jack demanded. "She collapsed in the snow. She will freeze if we send her back out there. Winter will have your hide. Then he can have it." "I am not letting her die because that old bastard works his servants to death." Olivia drifted in and out of awareness as the men worked to warm her. Someone brought hot coffee, which they coaxed down her throat in small sips. Someone else found dry clothes, and they sent Pete out of the room while the others helped her change out of her soaked dress. Slowly, painfully, warmth returned to her body. When she could finally speak, the first word she said was, "Sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," Isaac said fiercely. He was sitting beside the bunk, holding one of her hands between both of his to warm it. "This is not your fault. Mr. Winter will be angry. Let him be angry. You nearly died, Olivia. Died because he has been working you like a beast of burden. I am done standing by. We all are." She looked around and saw the other ranch hands nodding, their faces grim. These rough, weathered cowboys had been moved by her suffering, and something in that made tears spill down her cheeks. The bunkhouse door slammed open, and Theodore Winter strode in with Mrs. Brennan behind him. His face was thunderous. "What is the meaning of this? I was told one of my men is harboring my servant." Isaac stood, placing himself between Winter and Olivia. "She collapsed in the snow. She would have frozen to death. She has responsibilities. She is human, not a machine. You have been working her past endurance, barely feeding her, giving her the worst tasks in the worst conditions. It is wrong, and we are not going to stand for it anymore." Winter's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You forget yourself, Morgan." "No, sir. With respect, you have forgotten yourself. You have let your grief turn you cruel. Your son would not have wanted this." The mention of his son hit Winter like a physical blow. For a moment his face crumpled, and the men glimpsed the broken father beneath the harsh exterior. Then his features hardened again. "Get out. All of you off my land. You are fired." "Then fire all of us," Jack Riley said, stepping forward. "Because we all agree with Isaac, the girl deserves better." One by one the other ranch hands stood. Tom Chen, Pete Williams, all 6 men in the bunkhouse, united. Winter stared at them in disbelief. "You would throw away good work for a servant girl. We would stand up for what is right," Isaac said quietly. "Something you used to understand before you let bitterness poison you." The silence stretched. Outside, the blizzard howled. Inside, the future of Silver Creek Ranch hung in the balance. Winter needed these men, especially in winter. Losing his entire experienced crew would be catastrophic. Finally, Winter spoke, his voice tight. "What do you want? Let Miss Harper go. Give her a proper reference and enough money to establish herself in town. Let her leave with dignity. She owes me for room and board. She has more than worked off any debt with the labor you have extracted from her. You know this is true." Winter looked at Olivia, truly looked at her for perhaps the first time. Saw the exhaustion, the raw hands, the defeat in her eyes. Maybe he saw something of his own lost son in her suffering. Maybe he was just cornered and calculating. Whatever the reason, he nodded slowly. "Fine, she can go. I will give her $5 and a letter stating she worked here satisfactorily." $10, Isaac countered. "And the letter states she was an exemplary worker who you would recommend without reservation. You push your luck, Morgan. $10 and a proper reference. That is the deal." Winter's jaw worked. Then, "Agreed. But this changes nothing between us, Morgan. You have undermined my authority. I will not forget that. I can live with that, sir." Winter turned and left, Mrs. Brennan scurrying after him. The moment the door closed, the tension broke and the ranch hands let out collective breaths. "Well," Jack said, "that went better than expected. Thought we would all be out in the snow." "Thank you," Olivia whispered. "All of you. I do not know how to repay you." "No repayment needed," Pete said gruffly. "Just doing what is right." They let Olivia rest in the bunkhouse for the remainder of the storm, the men sleeping on the floor or in extra bunks. Isaac stayed closest, watching over her through the night. When she woke from fitful sleep, he was there with water and food. "You gave up your job for me," she said. "Not quite. Winter is angry, but he needs us. Things will be tense for a while, but we will manage. I still do not understand why you care so much." Isaac took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle around hers. "Because the moment I saw you, something changed in me. I have spent years drifting, never letting myself care about anyone or anything. But you walked into that kitchen with your head held high despite everything, and I knew. I knew you were someone special, someone worth fighting for, worth staying for. You barely know me. Then I will spend the rest of my life getting to know you if you will let me." Olivia's heart pounded. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I think I am falling in love with you, Olivia Harper. I am saying that I want to court you properly, give you the respect and care you deserve. I am saying that you deserve better than being a servant, better than scraping by alone. You deserve someone who sees your worth." Tears streamed down Olivia's face, but for the first time in months they were tears of joy. "I think I am falling in love with you too. It frightens me how fast it is happening. Sometimes the best things happen fast, like storms, like lightning. Like two people recognizing each other across a crowded kitchen." She laughed, the sound watery but genuine. "You have a poet's soul, Isaac Morgan. Only for you." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away, but she met him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they separated, Isaac was grinning like a fool. "Well then, I suppose we are courting now. I suppose we are." The blizzard blew itself out over the next 2 days. When the sky finally cleared, Winter kept his word. He provided Olivia with $10, a proper reference letter, and transportation into Winnemucca. Mrs. Brennan was stiffly silent, perhaps chastened by the confrontation. Sarah hugged Olivia goodbye, whispering, "I am glad you escaped. Maybe I will find my own courage someday." "You will," Olivia assured her, "and when you do, come find me." Isaac rode with her into town, and Mrs. Fitzgerald at the hotel was delighted to offer her the clerk position. The room was small but clean, with a real bed and a window overlooking the main street. After the attic at Silver Creek, it felt like a palace. "I will come visit every Sunday," Isaac promised, "and any other time I can get away, if that is all right with you, more than all right." He kissed her again, longer this time, and Olivia felt hope blooming in her chest like a flower pushing through spring snow. Her new position at the hotel was everything the ranch had not been. Mrs. Fitzgerald was demanding but fair, and she appreciated Olivia's quick mind and neat handwriting. The work was challenging, keeping track of guests and accounts and supplies, but it was indoor work, and she was treated with respect. Olivia took her meals with Mrs. Fitzgerald and the other staff, proper hot meals that began to restore her strength. Her hands healed. Color returned to her cheeks. She bought new dresses with her wages, simple but well made, and began to feel human again. And every Sunday, Isaac rode into town. They attended church together, then spent the afternoon walking through Winnemucca, talking and laughing and learning everything about each other. He told her about his dreams of owning a small ranch someday, raising cattle and horses. She told him about wanting to run a business, use her head for figures. "We could do it together," Isaac said one Sunday in late February. They were sitting on a bench outside the general store watching the town bustle past. Buy some land, build something of our own. That would take years of saving. I have time. We have time. We sent warmth through Olivia's entire body. They had only been courting for 6 weeks, but it felt like she had known Isaac forever. He was steady and kind and honest, everything she had not known she was looking for. At Silver Creek, things had indeed been tense after the confrontation. Winter treated Isaac with cold formality, and the other ranch hands walked on eggshells for a few weeks. But gradually, as winter turned toward spring and the work demanded everyone's attention, the tension eased. Winter never apologized for how he had treated Olivia, but Jack reported that the old man had hired 2 new kitchen workers and was paying them proper wages. Maybe he had learned something. Maybe his son's memory had finally been honored by doing right. Isaac did not care much either way. His focus was on Olivia and their growing relationship. In March, after 3 months of courtship, Isaac asked Olivia to marry him. They were walking by the river that ran through town, the ice breaking up and flowing downstream, when he suddenly stopped and took both her hands. Olivia Harper, I know we have not been courting long by conventional standards, but I have never been more sure of anything in my life. You are everything I want, everything I need. Will you marry me? Olivia's answer was instant. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. They married in April, in the small church in Winnemucca with half the town attending. Jack Riley stood up as Isaac's best man, and Sarah, who had finally left Silver Creek for work at the general store, was Olivia's maid of honor. Even Mrs. Fitzgerald closed the hotel for the afternoon to attend. Theodore Winter did not come, but he sent a wedding gift, the deed to 20 acres of grazing land on the edge of his property, and a letter stating that Isaac Morgan was welcome to continue working at Silver Creek while building his own place. Isaac read the letter aloud to Olivia on their wedding night, and she shook her head in wonder. He does have some decency left in him after all. Maybe, or maybe he just knows good men are hard to replace. Isaac set the letter aside and gathered his new wife into his arms. But I do not want to talk about Theodore Winter right now. No, what do you want to talk about? How much I love you, how lucky I am, how I plan to spend the rest of my life making you happy. Olivia kissed him, pouring everything she felt into that kiss. I love you, Isaac Morgan. You saved me, not just from Winter's ranch, but from believing I had no value. You saved me too, gave me a reason to stop drifting and start building a real life. They made love tenderly that night, and Olivia felt cherished in a way she had never experienced. This man, this cowboy who had seen her at her lowest and said she deserved better, had given her everything. The first year of their marriage was full of hard work, but also joy. Isaac continued working at Silver Creek while spending every spare moment building a cabin on their 20 acres. Olivia kept her position at the hotel, saving every penny toward their future. By late fall, the cabin was finished. 3 rooms with a stone fireplace, solid walls, and a real roof. It was not large or fancy, but it was theirs, built with Isaac's own hands and furnished with items they bought together in town. They moved in just before the first snow, and Olivia stood in the middle of their home, tears streaming down her face. "What is wrong?" Isaac asked, alarmed. "Nothing is wrong. Everything is right. A year ago I was sleeping in an attic, working myself to death, believing that was all I deserved. Now I have this. I have you. I have a home." Isaac wrapped his arms around her. "We have a home, and this is just the beginning." That winter was nothing like the one before. Their cabin was warm and cozy, and they spent the long evenings talking and planning. Olivia kept the books for their small operation, while Isaac worked with winter's cattle and began building their own herd. In spring, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The news filled them both with joy and terror. Isaac became almost comically protective, refusing to let her do anything strenuous. Olivia laughed at his hovering but loved him for it. Their son was born in October 1884, a healthy boy with Isaac's blue eyes and Olivia's auburn hair. They named him James, after Isaac's father, and he was the light of their lives. Olivia left her position at the hotel to care for James, but she continued doing bookkeeping for several businesses in town, working from home. The income helped, and she loved using her mind for figures. Over the next few years, their small ranch grew. Isaac proved to have a gift for raising horses as well as cattle, and their reputation spread. They hired a young cowboy to help with the work, treating him fairly and paying him proper wages, determined never to exploit anyone the way Olivia had been exploited. They had 2 more children, a daughter named Emma in 1887 and another son, Michael, in 1890. Their cabin expanded with additions and improvements, becoming a proper ranch house with room for their growing family. Sarah married Tom Chen, the horse trainer from Silver Creek, and they bought land neighboring Isaac and Olivia's property. The 4 of them became like family, supporting each other through the challenges of ranching life. Theodore Winter died in 1889, and to everyone's surprise, he left a portion of Silver Creek to Isaac in his will. The letter accompanying the bequest was brief. "You were right, Morgan. My son would have been ashamed of who I became. This is my apology, too late but sincere. Use it better than I did." Isaac and Olivia incorporated the additional land into their operation, which they called Morgan's Rest. It became one of the most successful ranches in northern Nevada, known for quality horses and cattle, and for treating workers with fairness and respect. But more than their material success, what defined Isaac and Olivia's life together was the deep love they shared. Even after 20 years of marriage, Isaac still looked at his wife like she was the most precious thing in the world. Olivia still felt her heart skip when Isaac walked through the door. Their children grew up strong and confident, knowing they were loved. James proved to have his mother's head for business and eventually took over much of the ranch management. Emma was wild and fearless, equally comfortable on horseback or helping with bookkeeping. Michael was gentle and thoughtful, with a gift for training even the most difficult horses. On a warm evening in the summer of 1900, Isaac and Olivia sat on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sun set over land they had built together. Their children were grown now, James married with a baby on the way, Emma courting a young lawyer from town, Michael apprenticed to a master horse trainer in California. "Can you believe it has been 17 years since we married?" Olivia asked, leaning into Isaac's side. "Some days it feels like yesterday. Other days it feels like I have loved you my whole life. Remember when we met? I was so broken, so defeated." Isaac took her hand, bringing it to his lips. "You were never broken. Bent maybe, but never broken. I saw your strength from the first moment. You saw something in me I could not see in myself. You told me I deserved better, and you spent the rest of your life proving it. Loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done, Olivia. Building this ranch, raising our children, growing old with you, it is more than I ever dreamed possible." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The air smelled of sage and horses and home. From inside, they could hear their youngest grandson crying, being soothed by James's wife. The sound of the next generation, the legacy of their love. "I am glad you refused to let me give up," Olivia said softly. "Glad you saw me as more than a servant. You were always more. You just needed someone to remind you, and you needed someone to give you a reason to stop drifting and build a life. We saved each other. Yes, we did." Isaac kissed her temple, and Olivia closed her eyes, feeling completely at peace. The winter that had made her a servant on Theodore Winter's ranch seemed like a lifetime ago, a dark chapter that led to the brightest happiness she could have imagined. Because a cowboy with kind blue eyes had seen her struggling and said 4 simple words that changed everything. "You deserve better." And then he had spent every day since proving those words true, building a life with her that was better than anything she had dared to dream. A life filled with love and respect and partnership, with children and grandchildren and a home built on solid ground. As the stars wheeled overhead and the desert breathed around them, Isaac and Olivia Morgan held hands and counted their blessings. They had started with nothing but hope and determination, and they had built an empire of love. It was more than enough. It was everything. Years continued to pass with the gentle rhythm of ranch life. James and his wife Ruth gave Isaac and Olivia 4 grandchildren, filling the ranch with laughter and chaos. Emma eventually married her lawyer, a kind man named Daniel who treated her like an equal partner and supported her unusual desire to keep working with the ranch horses even after marriage. They settled in Winnemucca, where Daniel practiced law and Emma ran a successful horse trading business. Michael returned from California in 1903 with new training techniques and a quiet wife named Alice, a painter who captured the stark beauty of the Nevada landscape on canvas. They built a house on the far edge of Morgan's Rest and established a horse training facility that drew clients from as far away as California and Colorado. Isaac and Olivia watched their family grow with pride and gratitude. They made sure to tell their children and grandchildren the story of how they met, wanting them to understand that love could bloom even in the harshest circumstances, and that standing up for what was right mattered more than comfort or security. "Your grandmother was the bravest person I ever met," Isaac would tell the grandchildren as they sat around the fireplace on winter evenings. "She had nothing, but she never let that make her bitter or mean. She worked harder than anyone I knew. And your grandfather saw me when I was invisible to everyone else," Olivia would add. "He reminded me that I had value when I had forgotten. That is what real love does. It sees you truly and helps you see yourself." The children would listen with wide eyes, unable to imagine their strong, capable grandmother as the desperate young woman who had nearly frozen in the snow. Unable to picture their confident grandfather as the cowboy who had risked his job to save her. But those hard times had shaped Isaac and Olivia into the people they became. The struggles made them compassionate, the suffering made them kind, and the love that brought them together sustained them through every challenge. In 1910, Isaac and Olivia celebrated their 26th wedding anniversary with a party that brought together friends and family from across Nevada. Sarah and Tom were there, their own children grown and successful. Jack Riley, now retired from ranch work, came with his new wife. Even Mrs. Fitzgerald, elderly now but still sharp, attended with her daughter. As Isaac and Olivia danced together under strings of lanterns in their barn, now used for celebrations rather than livestock, they reflected on how far they had come. "I am 62 years old," Isaac said, "and I love you more now than I did at 25. "I am 57, Olivia replied, "and I fall in love with you again every single day. No regrets, not a single one. Only that I did not see you sooner, that you suffered as long as you did. But if you had seen me sooner, we might not have been ready for each other. Maybe we both needed to go through what we did to become the people who could build this life together." Isaac considered that, then nodded. "You are probably right. You usually are. Olivia laughed, the sound full and rich. Remember that, Cowboy. They danced until the stars faded and dawn crept over the horizon, surrounded by everyone they loved, in the home they had built together through determination and devotion. The years rolled on. Isaac's hair went completely white, but his eyes remained clear and bright. Olivia moved a bit slower but still kept the ranch books with meticulous precision. They became pillars of the Winnemucca community, known for their generosity and fairness. Young couples starting out would often receive quiet help from the Morgans, a loan to buy land or cattle, advice on raising children and building a marriage. "We remember what it was like to have nothing," Olivia would say. "If we can make someone else's path a little easier, we will." They never forgot Theodore Winter either, the man whose cruelty had nearly destroyed Olivia, but whose final act of contrition had helped establish their prosperity. They made sure Silver Creek, now part of Morgan's Rest, was maintained as a memorial to what could happen when power was abused, and what could be redeemed through genuine change. In the spring of 1915, as Olivia was working in her garden, planting the vegetables she had learned to grow in the harsh Nevada soil, she paused to look across the land. Their ranch stretched as far as she could see, the cattle and horses grazing peacefully, the ranch buildings solid and well-maintained. Smoke curled from the chimney of James's house, and she could see Emma's children playing in the distance. Isaac came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over 31 years of marriage. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything." "Nothing. How lucky we are." "The luck was all mine. Finding you was like finding water in the desert." Olivia turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. His face was lined with age now, but to her, he would always be the young cowboy who had looked at a desperate servant girl and seen someone worthy of love and respect. "We saved each other," she reminded him. "You gave me hope, but I gave you a home, a reason to stay. The best reason." They stood together in the garden, the Nevada sun warm on their faces, the wind carrying the scent of sage and wildflowers. Around them was the life they had built from nothing, sustained by love that had been tested and proven true. As evening fell and the family gathered for dinner, the table was loud with conversation and laughter. Grandchildren argued good-naturedly while parents mediated. James discussed ranch business with Isaac. Emma entertained everyone with stories of her latest horse trade. Michael and Alice shared news of their youngest daughter's engagement. Olivia watched it all with quiet joy, occasionally catching Isaac's eye across the table and sharing a smile that held 31 years of shared history and love. After dinner, as the family scattered to their various homes across the ranch property, Isaac and Olivia walked slowly back to their house, hand in hand as they had walked together through every season of their marriage. "You remember," Olivia said, "what you told me that day in the barn. When I had fallen in the snow, I told you that you deserved better. You did, and then you spent the rest of your life making sure I had better, making sure I knew my worth." Isaac stopped walking and turned to face her, cupping her face in his weathered hands. "You made my life better too, Olivia. You took a drifting cowboy with no real purpose and gave him everything worth living for. We were meant to find each other, even if the path was hard. Especially because the path was hard. We appreciate what we have because we know what it is like to have nothing." They kissed, and even after 3 decades, the touch still sent warmth through Olivia's entire being. This man, her husband, her partner, her love, had never stopped seeing her as precious, never stopped treating her with respect and devotion. Inside their home, They settled into their evening routine, comfortable and familiar. Isaac read the newspaper while Olivia worked on mending. The clock ticked peacefully on the mantel. The fire crackled in the hearth. Outside, the Nevada night spread its blanket of stars. "I love you, Olivia Morgan," Isaac said, not looking up from his paper. "I love you too, Isaac Morgan," Olivia replied, not pausing in her stitching. The words had been spoken thousands of times over the years, but they never lost their power or meaning. They were the foundation upon which everything else was built. As they prepared for bed, moving through the rituals of 31 years of shared nights, Olivia thought about that frightened young woman who had stood in the snow outside Silver Creek Ranch, desperate and defeated. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that everything would be all right, that suffering would not last forever, that a kind-hearted cowboy would see her and change everything. But that girl had to walk her own path, just as Olivia had walked hers. The struggles had made her strong. The hardship had taught her to appreciate joy. The darkness had made her treasure the light. And the light was Isaac, had always been Isaac, from the moment he looked at her in that kitchen and saw not a servant, but a person worthy of love. They climbed into bed and Isaac pulled Olivia close, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her in the position they had slept in for decades. Safe, warm, together. "Good night, my love," Isaac murmured. "Good night," Olivia whispered back. As she drifted towards sleep, Olivia counted her blessings one more time. A home built on love and respect. Children and grandchildren who knew they were valued. A partnership that had weathered every storm. A man who had seen her at her worst and said she deserved better, then spent his life proving it. She had been a servant, broken and desperate. Now she was a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a businesswoman, a pillar of her community. She had helped build an empire from nothing, raised a family with kindness and strength, and created a legacy that would outlast her lifetime. But more than any material success, what mattered most was the love she shared with Isaac. The love that had started with 4 simple words and grown into something that sustained them both through every joy and sorrow. As sleep claimed her, Olivia's last conscious thought was gratitude. Gratitude for the winter that had brought her to Nevada. Gratitude for the desperation that had led her to Silver Creek. Gratitude for the suffering that had brought her low enough that when Isaac reached for her hand, she could accept it. Most of all, gratitude for the cowboy who had looked past circumstances and status to see her true worth, and who had spent every day since showing her that love was not just words, but actions. Not just promises, but presence. Not just dreams, but reality built one day at a time through devotion and partnership. Winter had made her a servant on Theodore Winter's ranch, but Isaac Morgan had made her something far better. Beloved, valued, and cherished for exactly who she was, and that made all the difference. The stars wheeled overhead through the Nevada night, the same stars that had witnessed Olivia's arrival in the snow, her near death in the blizzard, her first kiss with Isaac, their wedding, the births of their children, and every moment of their long, rich life together. The stars would keep turning long after they were gone, but the love they had built, the family they had raised, and the legacy of kindness and respect they had created would endure. It would live on in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch they had built, in the lives they had touched. Because one cowboy had refused to look away from injustice. Because one woman had found the courage to accept help. Because 2 people had recognized in each other the possibility of something better, and had worked together to make that possibility real. Their story began with suffering but ended in joy. Started with loss but ended in abundance. Started with loneliness but ended surrounded by love. And every day, as the sun rose over Morgan's Rest. It illuminated not just land and buildings, but the tangible evidence of what was possible when two people committed to seeing each other's worth and building a life based on mutual respect and devotion. The ranch thrived. The family grew. The love endured. And Olivia and Isaac Morgan, the servant and the cowboy who had found each other in the harshest winter, spent the rest of their lives basking in the endless summer of the love they had created together. A love that warmed them more surely than any fire and sustained them more completely than any material wealth. They had found in each other everything they needed: a partner, a friend, a love that would last until the end of their days and beyond, living on in the hearts of all those they had touched. It was the happiest of endings, earned through hardship and sealed with devotion, a testament to the transformative power of love and the importance of standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. And every evening, as the sun set over Nevada and painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Isaac and Olivia would sit together on their porch, hand in hand, watching their world and knowing that they had built something beautiful together, something that would last, something that mattered. Something that began with 4 simple words and became a lifetime of love. You deserve better. And then, through action and devotion, through partnership and commitment, Isaac had spent every day making sure Olivia had exactly that: better than servitude, better than desperation, better than anything she had imagined possible. He had given her a life filled with love, respect, family, and joy, and she had given him the same, transforming his aimless drifting into purpose, his loneliness into belonging, his empty future into one rich with meaning. Together, they had proven that love could overcome any obstacle, heal any wound, and transform any life. And they lived that truth every single day, for all the years they were given, grateful for each moment and each other. 2 souls who had found their perfect match in the most unlikely of circumstances and built something extraordinary from the ashes of hardship. Their love story, born in winter but blooming into eternal spring, became legend in Winnemucca, passed down through generations as an example of what was possible when kindness met courage, when recognition met action, and when 2 hearts found their home in each other. And long after Isaac and Olivia Morgan had passed into memory, their descendants would walk the land they had built together, tend the legacy they had created, and remember the story of the servant and the cowboy who had loved each other so completely that even death could not diminish what they had shared. Because true love, the kind that sees worth in suffering, that offers help without expectation, that builds slowly and surely through years of devotion, that kind of love never truly ends. It transforms into something eternal, living on in every act of kindness, every stand against injustice, every moment when someone looks at another person and sees not their circumstances but their inherent worth. Isaac Morgan had looked at Olivia Harper and seen someone who deserved better. And then he had dedicated his life to making sure she got it. That was the greatest love story of all, not grand gestures but consistent devotion, not passionate declarations but steady presence, not fairy tale perfection but real partnership through every challenge life presented. And so their story ended not with an ending at all, but with a legacy that would continue as long as people believed in the transformative power of love, respect, and seeing the inherent worth in every human being. The winter winds that had brought Olivia to Nevada had long since blown themselves out, but the warmth of the love she and Isaac shared continued to radiate outward, touching countless lives and proving that even in the harshest circumstances, hope could bloom and love could conquer all.